G'day guys, Fitcho here. Now, next weekend is the return of the French Grand Prix to Formula 1. It's been almost 10 years since they last hosted a race, but this time, instead of returning to Magny-Cours, which hosted the last Grand Prix in 2008 and was the host of the race since 1991, up until 2008, Formula 1 is heading south to Paul Ricard just outside of Marseille. Now, Paul Ricard has hosted the Grand Prix before, but the last race they held was back in 1990, 28 years ago now, and obviously, with such a long absence from the circuit, a lot of Formula 1 fans now know nothing about the Paul Ricard track. And to be honest, before today, neither did I, but I've spent the last few hours driving around this track on Assetto Corsa, learning all the little tips and tricks of the track, and now I'm going to pass all that knowledge onto you guys, give you guys a first look at the Paul Ricard circuit, so you know what to expect next weekend. So to start things off, let's go for a hot lap of the Paul Ricard circuit. Right, here we are on the track here at Paul Ricard in a 2017 Ferrari Formula 1 car. And out of the final corner, we come to start our lap. There is the line. The clock is ticking as we head down towards turn number 1. Now, you want to brake just after the 100-meter board. Get it back down into third gear, a very late apex for the first part of the chicane. Flick it back to the right. You can see there's a lot of undulation change there, and the car does get very, very light. You saw I had a little bit of a moment as now we head down to turn number 3, back to third gear for this fast right-hander, back to second as we head back to the left, now back to first for this hairpin. This hairpin is quite important, but this next corner is even more important. This right-hander is a really tricky one. It's not quite flat out, and it sets up your run onto the Mistral straight as through that flat out little left kink. It's almost not a corner, that kink. But that right-hander is so important, and I don't think I've mastered it just yet, got the line right. And I'm actually interested to see what the real professionals actually do. But down to the chicane, brake just after the 100-meter board, back to third gear for the first part. Now we flick it back to second as we head back to the right. Onto the power we go, using a little bit of the curb there, and back out. Onto the Mistral straight we go. Of course, that chicane splitting this very, very long straight in half. Now down to this flat-out right-hander. There was a lot of talk about this corner, but it's just easy flat in these cars. Maybe not in the race, but now this corner is really difficult. You sort of brake almost at the apex. It's a very fast right-hander, and you're slowing down through it for that next right-hander. Now accelerating out this corner here, this left-hander. So much understeer in the car. I've found it so difficult to actually get across to the apex, and I expect to see a lot of mistakes there throughout the free practice sessions. But now down to the final few corners, you want a really late apex through this penultimate corner to try to straighten up this very short run to the last corner so you can get the best run you possibly can back onto the straight through that hairpin. And that is a lap of the Paul Ricard circuit. What is the time? It is a 1:38.9, a very quick lap there by my standards, but we'll have to wait and see what the real guys can actually do just to see how slow I am. But nonetheless, that is the lap of the Paul Ricard circuit. Now let's go a little bit more in depth with my thoughts on the track. So, now we've seen a hot lap of this Paul Ricard circuit, let's talk a little bit more in depth about the track and talk about the speed of the track. It is a very, very fast track, straight up. You've got 3 long straights and another very, not long straight, but a short, fast section between turns 2 and 3, and I feel like I would categorize this track definitely as a power circuit, and that means it's going to favor Mercedes and Ferrari over the Red Bulls. The Red Bulls are going to have a difficult weekend, I think, here in France. It'll be interesting to see how Mercedes versus Ferraris goes. In the past, Mercedes have been dominant compared to Ferrari on the power circuits, but I feel like in recent times Ferrari have made a little bit of a comeback in terms of the power unit area, but I still think this is probably going to favor Mercedes more than any other team. Red Bull, like I said, are going to struggle, and looking at the midfield pack, Force India I think will be strong, Haas will be decent, Renault and McLaren are going to struggle again with that Renault power unit, same with Toro Rosso. I just don't think they're going to have a good time of things with the 3 long straights here at the Paul Ricard circuit. And speaking of straights, let's talk about the DRS zones. I have not seen anything confirmed yet, but I'm probably 99% certain it's going to be down the pit straight from turn 15 down to turn number 1. That is a great overtaking zone. And then on the Mistral straight, the first half of the Mistral straight, coming out of turn number 7 and down to the chicane at turn number 8. Now, onto overtaking opportunities. Obviously, they are going to go hand in hand with the DRS zones. Turn 1 and Turn 8 were the 2 I was going to say straight up. Of course, coming off long straights into heavy braking zone, it's perfect for overtaking. Throw in some DRS there as well. We can definitely see some action there. Maybe the run down to turn number 3 could provide a little bit of racing, but you'd have to get a good run through that first chicane and really set them up for turn number 3 to make that work. And also, the second half of the Mistral straight, coming down to turn number 10, I think it's the Signes corner. My French is horrible. I do apologize if I butchered that pronunciation. But down there could be a little bit of racing. That corner is flat out in qualifying trim, I've found. But maybe when they're looking after tires and stuff with full fuel loads in the car, maybe it won't quite be flat out. But definitely with the DRS down the first half of the Mistral Straight, and that chicane being a very big and open chicane, I guess you could say. It's not sort of tight like the chicane at the end of the Barcelona circuit sort of thing. It's a very open chicane, and there's definitely the possibility for trying alternate lines. If a car gets up your inside, go a bit deep, cut it back, try to get a nice run out of turn number 9, and we could see some racing, so that could, the racing from that DRS straight from turn 7 to turn 8 could also lead to a bit of racing out of that chicane in the second half of the Mistral Straight, down towards turn number 10, and then down into turn 11, and interestingly enough, I'm looking at a track map, that turn 11 is actually counted as one corner. It very much drives as two, because you come into the first right-hander, then you wash out quite wide, and then almost accelerate a little bit, then back on the brakes for that next right-hander. It's classified as one turn, actually, looking at it, but it's very much a double apex corner. You have to drive it as two separate corners. There could be some racing there, depending on how the racing goes through that chicane, through that fast turn number 10 and down into turn 11, but I don't think that's going to be a particularly good overtaking zone, because you almost turn in before you actually hit the brakes there at turn number 11. The first half of that corner is very, very fast. And then, of course, you have that last technical section to the end of the lap through turns 11, 12, 13, 14, and 15, and then the end of the lap. I feel like that's a very difficult part of the track, and I feel like we've had a lot of talk this season with the aero regs, and I feel like the cars are definitely going to struggle to follow each other through there. There are some higher speed things through there, along with some slow speeds, especially that understeer turn 12. When you get some dirty air there as well, especially with the understeer and off-camberness of that corner, things are going to get very, very tough for a following car, and that could possibly hurt the racing down that pit straight towards turn number 1. I am not too sure exactly how that's going to play out, but that could definitely be a hard point for cars to follow on this lap. You definitely want to get your overtaking done, I think. Down the Mistral Straight into turn number 8. Again, through turn 6 as well, now I think about it. That's almost a flat-out right-hander in qualifying trim. It's very, very difficult. And you're building speed all the way through that corner, and it's quite a difficult corner. With a bit of dirty air there, again, that could actually really hurt the following car. And then, of course, that leads onto the Mistral Straight, so it's going to be interesting to see how the dirty air through turn number 6 and 7, then getting the DRS is going to all play out, because the following car is going to struggle coming onto that straight with the dirty air, but then they get the advantage of DRS, so it's going to be interesting to see how long they make that DRS zone and how overpowered it is going to be. Also, with the Paul Ricard Circuit, in recent times it's very much been used as a test track, and what that means is they've replaced all the grass and the gravel traps with lots and lots of tarmac runoff. Of course, when you're testing cars, if people make mistakes, you don't want them to be damaged in the cars, you don't want any punishment for that. They can just drive straight through the asphalt runoff areas. That makes sense for a test track, but now this track is going back to being used as a race circuit. Things are going to be a little bit interesting, because everywhere there is just tarmac runoff. Every single corner there is tarmac runoff, and I feel like track limits is going to be very much a vocal point throughout this weekend, as I feel like with all the tarmac runoff there's going to be a lot of track limits abuse throughout the weekend. It's going to be interesting to see how all that plays out. Me personally, I really dislike the amount of tarmac runoff there is. I personally think there should be racetrack, white line, curb, grass, gravel, wall. Very simple in my opinion how racetrack should be designed that way. But Paul Ricard, it has got lots and lots of tarmac runoff. Like I said, it does make sense for the way the circuit's been used recently, but now it's going back to a race circuit for Formula 1. I'm really not a fan of the fact there is so much tarmac runoff area here, and as well, it is painted red, white, and blue, and it looks freaking hideous at times, I will say. Aerial shots of the track really are a bit of an eyesore, not going to lie, but I guess some people might like it. I'm not going to cast judgment, but I'm not a big fan of that part of the track. It's definitely going to cause a little bit of confusion with all the track limits, and I feel like that's going to be talked about throughout this weekend. And speaking of confusion, this is not so much about the race, this is about my personal experience driving the track with so much tarmac runoff, and of course so many alternate layouts of this Paul Ricard circuit. I found it very difficult finding my way around the track at the start of this. It took me a fair few laps, a lot more than it normally takes me to learn a circuit, because like coming down to turn 1, there's like 3 different alternative racetracks they can use at turn 1. The chicane is absolutely chaos with the different chicane configurations they can create, and then of course the straight still going right down the middle, and then you add in tarmac everywhere. I tried driving this track in cockpit cam originally, and I just couldn't pick out where I was going. I was so lost with so little reference points. Everything just looked the same. It was just tarmac everywhere. And there was so much racetrack going in all different ways. Working out which layout I was actually driving was actually quite a challenge, but I don't think that's going to so much confuse the professionals as it will me here just driving on a game in my bedroom. But I thought that was funny nonetheless, so I actually switched to T-Cam, got a better overview, and eventually sort of managed to pick out my lines throughout the track and work out where the racetrack was going. But nonetheless, that is going to bring this video to an end. They are my thoughts on this circuit, a hot lap of the track, a first look at the Paul Ricard Circuit, and a bit about how I think this track is going to race and how it's going to be across the weekend. Now, I am actually doing this video in conjunction with one of my friends, Mr. Danger Days F1. I'll leave a link to him in the description. He's going to be using this hot lap video that I am doing in his video. Then he's going a lot more in depth. There's a much more of a general preview leading up to this French Grand Prix, talking about drivers and how races have gone in the past, what to expect coming up into this weekend, how he thinks people will go, etc, etc. He asked me to do a video where I do a hot lap and talk about how I think this circuit's going to run, so that's what I've done, and he's going to use this in his video as well, so I thought I'd upload it to my channel as well, because I'm sure a lot of people are going to be interested in having a look at this track. So a link to his channel will be down in the description for a much more bigger overview leading up to the French Grand Prix. I didn't want to go too in depth there because that's his job, because I am doing this in conjunction with him. So I'll leave a link to his channel in the description. Not sure when his video is going up, but when it does, I will also leave that link in the description. Make sure you do check it out. But that's going to do it for today, guys. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you did enjoy, make sure you do smash that like button. If you guys are new to the channel, make sure you do subscribe for much more Formula 1 related content. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you all next time.